Chosen Men. By special request, viewer Iguanosaurus Rex asked to see another game of Chosen Men, and we here in the House of Wargaming live to serve. Now, it's been a while since we've played this game. Remember, we did a full campaign, 5 villages, a little bit of loot and scoot on the British side, but we're going to take our time. We'll reference the rules, we'll edit all that out, try to keep this flowing as quickly as possible. On the British side, we only have 2 units altogether, but what a couple of units. Over here on your left is our colonel. He's a strategist, and he has the huzzah ability. So units within 3 inches, they auto-rally. Remember, I'm playing 15 millimeters, so we're cutting all ranges in half if you have chosen men. We've got a unit in the back here of 10 light dragoons and a unit of 20 rifles. I want to see what these big units can do. And I mean, they're just basically straight from the book. Carbine, pistol, saber in the back. They do have charge. And then the guys in the front, musket, bayonet. They are British, of course. They have the 2-rank line. Now, I did pay for the drummer, and I did pay for the standard. Where is he? Oh, here he is. Turn his face a little bit better. So we do get the advantages of those. For the boys in the back, I did pay for a bugler. Did I? I feel like I did. Yep, and then of course they are impetuous, so they have to pursue. On the French side, things get a little more complicated. We've got a total of 4 different units. In the back here, we've got a unit of lancers, a fairly substantial unit. 10 of those. We've got a unit of 5 foot dragoons, for which we have purchased the... Wait, did we? Where's the foot dragoons? Yep, there's our foot dragoons. And I guess I purchased a standard bearer. I didn't realize that. And then we've got a unit of light infantry with a standard bearer again. And then over here on the left, we've got a unit of 10 infantry there led by a lieutenant colonel. So a total of 2 strategy points for him versus the British, who have 3 strategy points. And we'll talk about what that means as we go through the game. But first, we need to figure out what kind of game we're playing. And I don't mean Napoleonics, duh. The rules for this game, look, it's an Osprey game, right? $20 for 64 pages. They're a little vague on the order of operations for setting up your table. They provide you with guidance on setting up terrain, and then say, then pick your scenario. I don't know if this terrain's going to work, because we're going to pick our scenario next. But if the scenario doesn't work, we'll just find a new one. So, of course, we get a stream. We got a little ford here and a bridge. Those are the easy ways to cross the stream. You can cross anywhere, but it does cost you an extra couple of inches to get it all the way across the terrain piece. This is going to count as difficult ground. The banks are going to count as blocking ground. And similar to the trees, now in this game, you can shoot into or out of a woodland, but you can't shoot through it. Ours is on the edge of the table, so it won't come so much. But that is important for this one. In other words, you can shoot into the blue, you can shoot out of the blue, but you can't shoot across the blue. That's the way this is going to work. And like I said, the rough going here for the grass. I mean, look, this is a little farm, like a couple cows, a little bit of decorations. These are defensible walls. Obviously, the farmer has started near the road and is clearing the hay for the winter stock, and he hasn't quite gotten to those fields yet. Now, those fields do slow movement down by half. It's 2 to 1 for movement there. But that's the only effect those have. They do not block line of sight at all, not unlike the trees. These trees don't really provide enough cover, but they do bust up formations, which may or may not be important. And again, likewise with the bridge, you're not going to be able to form line and cross the bridge. You're going to have to form column, and maybe even then it's going to be a little too narrow for that. The road doesn't really have any effect on terrain. And this does not block gunfire, but it does provide a defense bonus, as does, I think, the stream bank. If you're on dry land and the other guy is in the stream, then we're going to call that defensible terrain. So with all of that out of the way, the next thing we have to do is figure out exactly which scenario we are going to play. And we roll a d6 for that. We get a 5. And according to the chart, that is going to be capture the flag. We're going to go with a cannon. Oh, it's a classic. Chosen Men is a skirmish game, but it's really more of a postage stamp slice of a larger battle. And we're going to see that when we start playing the game. At the beginning of the turn, of the game rather, on the first turn, there's a very real possibility that outside events in the greater battle could affect our little kind of sliver of the world here. And so what I'm envisioning now is that our capture the flag scenario is that the battle has moved on from this point. The French and the British have kind of driven each other out, and they've withdrawn, caught their breath, and realized, hey, somebody left a cannon here. The horses have been driven off. There's probably a lot of bodies that we don't represent on the table because this is a family show, and we all know how grim the reality of these fights are. We're playing a game in which the objective is for either the French or the British to get this cannon and get it off their table edge. It turns out there are other objectives. There are a total of D3 plus 1 objectives on the table. So 4 becomes 2, plus 1 is 3, so I need 2 more objective markers. To that end, we'll use this little stand of muskets and this little group of boxes. I guess these boxes, it fell off a truck. It's by the side of the road. So maybe the Italians were participating in this battle somewhere too. The smaller victory objectives are worth 3 victory points, whoever controls it at the end of the game. To control it, you need to have at least 5 infantry models from the same unbroken unit within 1.5 inches of the objective marker at the end of the turn. That being the case, let's go ahead and slide it way over here. We want to give ourselves plenty of space to operate. Bear in mind, only an infantry unit can control these victory markers. So if the French drive off the 1 British infantry unit, they effectively win the game. That being the case, we're going to let the British choose which side of the table they want, and the British are going to choose, and it has to be either this side or this side. And I think for that we will, the British want to take this southern portion. Here's what things look like from the British perspective. The cannon is behind this tree right here. They have put their cavalry on the left and the infantry on the right. For the French, things get a little bit more complicated. They have put their light infantry over on, as we look at it, the left, or their right. They have their unit of line infantry in the center, then their leader, and I should point out the commanders here are in the middle. And then these are the foot dragoons. This is the important distinction to make. The light infantry have a 50% chance of ignoring the difficulties due to terrain. Interestingly enough, our stream, it looks like what we've done is we've basically turned our table into one giant diagonal. Man, I'm all thumbs today. The stream is, not impenetrable, but we'll have to see what the British decide to do. Now, setup goes alternating. So the British started with their commander. Yep, we're going to go over here. And then the French responded by putting their line in the center. And for the British, it was just, the French, it was just a case of deploy the guys that you know what you're going to do. A strong center. And now I get to decide whether to put the cavalry or the light infantry on the left or the right. And as you can see, just based on the amount of room they have. So we're ready to get started, but not really, because this game has a fun little feature at the start of the game. Straight away, we have to roll for initiative at the start of the game. Now, the British have spent extra points on a full bird colonel. Wait, is a British colonel a full bird, or is that just the American colonels? And a British colonel in the Napoleonics? I don't know. Hopefully our commenters can fill me in on that one. The French only have a lieutenant colonel. Lieutenant colonel has a total strategy rating of 2 versus 3, meaning the British get a +1 on this die roll. And the British roll a 6 versus 4. So the British have 1, and the British will take the first turn. But before they get to go first, we have to figure out these Cauldron of War strategies. And these are, remember I said this is part of a much larger battle. These are situations such as your opponent may get scared about a big battalion that's located just off of our little battlefield, and they might take rifle shots or musket shots from that direction. Or there may be a cannon just off screen over there behind the white wall, and at the start of the game, it can take a shot. Now, the British have to roll on a chart. They're going to roll a d6. The French get to choose theirs, and I'm not sure which is first. So what we're going to do, because I'm a solo wargamer, I don't want the British choice to affect the French choice. So what I'm going to do is say the French are going to go ahead and do delaying tactics. The British have to remove 1 unit. They have to come on at the beginning of turn 2. Before that's resolved, though, the British are now going to roll. And they roll a 3 cavalry threat. When an enemy infantry is within 12 inches of the board, of the A board edge, the unit must pass a morale check or become broken. All right, so they basically have a little 6-inch strip along either side, left, right, or back. And we'll say the British came on from this side, so not this one. But the French can declare, like these guys, or even this cavalry threat here, they may start the game broken. But first, now because they've done that, the the French are now going to say, yeah, let's see, what is it here? Determine one unit at random. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, not the leader, obviously. So the cavalry are going to start the game off the board. And that cavalry, well, we'll get to that. For their first activation, the British will activate this unit. Now, this game uses action points. They call them tactical points, but it's basically action points. And you can move for 1. You can move it to double for 2. And that's what we're going to start with. You can also dig in, which basically means hunker down, for 2. This line infantry, because they are led by somebody who's really I don't know, why is that all line infantry for the British? Or is it a special ability? I don't know. Either way, they're going to get to move 3 inches plus another D3 inches, and we're going to go ahead and use the half inches. We're going to divide this by 2. So they get to move an extra 1.5 inches. They're going to be able to move up 4.5 inches, and then they'll stop, and they will dig in. The French have opted to move at the double across the board. This is what the game looks like at the end of turn number 1. We're about to start into turn number 2. However, this unit is now subject to the Cauldron of War. They have to make a morale check. To pass that check, we have to roll a d6, add the command value of 3 for that unit. They are simply led by a sergeant, and we're looking for a 7 or better. If we don't get a 4 up, we do, so they did not suffer any ill effects. And the story there is that there is a British cavalry unit somewhere off to the left of our table that is threatening to charge these guys, and they're like, honey, French badger, don't care. So they're going to ignore that, and we're just going to proceed with the turn. It is now turn number 2, and we have to roll for initiative. Again, the British have +1 on this roll. The British get to go first, and they can if they wanted to now. The interesting thing is, although their unit was delayed, it can come on anywhere in their deployment zone. So that gives them an opportunity to redeploy their cavalry. But they don't. The British realize that in order to win this scenario, they need to wipe out as many of those infantry units as possible. So they bring their cavalry up here. Hopefully they can chase off those light infantry and then just sweep around, kind of just roll up that whole flank before the cavalry can get invested. That being the case, this infantry unit is going to hold its action. It's going to spend 2 of its action points to be able to react. And also, our game is going to be 6 turns long, plus it's a minimum of 6, maybe as many as 9. But there's a 50-50 chance it's over after 6 turns. So we're going to hold tight here. We're going to blast away at anybody that gets too close to us. And then we'll kind of leap out on that last turn of the game and try to snag the cannon. However, the things they have to deal with are these cavalry sweeping around and hitting them in their right flank, and the fact that the French, they may decide, listen, I'm going to just move these foot dragoons over here, grab this objective, hold that objective. If they can get hold of that, that's a free 3 points, right? Maybe they'll do the same thing. We're not going to run this as a line them up and throw them at each other battle. So the British say, the British moved their first unit. And then the French say, I got to get these guys into here. If we can get this light infantry into the woods, they'll be safer from the charging of the British Bulldogs. And with another 1.5 inches, so they move it to double. They're going to be able to move 4.5 inches, and let's see if that's enough to get them there. 4.5 inches. So in this game, you move the leader 4.5 inches. He's not quite there. So in the spirit of good gamesmanship, we're going to put them right at the edge, and I think they'll be okay next turn because these cavalry only move 5 inches per turn. So the British have moved. The French have moved. Then the British say, I'm just going to hold here, and now the French have to do their moves as well. And I think we'll kind of move this guy over. We'll kind of stick him behind the tree so he's a little safe. And our commander now has his full unit. There's both of his commands within his command radius, so he's got to be love and life. That said, I'm going to go ahead and move the rest of the French forces. The French have moved their line infantry up. The muskets that they are armed with have a range of 9 inches, and that's pretty far. They're just out of range of this unit right here. They could probably start trading shots, but they're comfortable. And I'll tell you why in just a second, but let's go over some more movement. The commander, the lieutenant colonel for the French, is hiding behind this haystack, and Our foot dragoons have moved up and seized this objective marker. The cavalry are slowly worming their way through these fields. They only move 2.5 inches per turn. So they started 3 inches off, and now they've moved up a grand total of 5 inches. This is going to take a lot longer than I expected, to be honest with you. They are still in skirmish order, and they have just a couple, like turn number 3, they're headed for the ford. They're going to try to sweep around this way, maybe. But honestly, as far as I'm concerned, if I'm the French, I'm liking this. I don't have to destroy anybody. I can just sit on this victory point and win the game. Initiative goes to the British once again, which is unfortunate. The British keep winning the initiative. They'd really rather have the French commit first. Although in this case, it might work out in their favor because we are going to move the... our cavalry can now storm up to here. And they're just going to ride right over that objective. And I know they're not going to make it to the light infantry in time, but hey, that's okay. At least they're putting pressure on this side of the battlefield. That being the case, our light infantry now are going to move into the woods, and that should hold these guys at bay. If they just move, they will be able to dig in as well. But first we have to see if they're slowed down, because they're light infantry. On a 4 or better, well, it didn't happen. So they do only move 1.5 inches into the woods. That's going to put the leader right about there. And then we'll bring everybody kind of around. And as usual, they can fire out of the woods. And now the problem that the British have is that if they try to charge either of these guys, if they move into this area, there are 2 units that are going to catch this cavalry in a crossfire. And that's really not where you want to be. To make the understatement of the century. The British now get to go once again. They're going to hold here. The French are going to bring their cavalry up, and then our leader is fine with where he's at. Although, here on turn number 4, finally realizing the folly of moving into this area over here, the British are going to move their cavalry. They're going to swing them around this way. So we move the leader about 5 inches, and we bring all of his boys up to follow suit. And apparently that was just a feint there off to the left, and they're going to ride for the bridge and try to meet these guys and protect this unit here. The French now get to go, and we might as well move these guys up now on a 4 or better. They can ignore the terrain. They still didn't get it, so they're going to move 1.5 inches. Well, we'll move the 1 inch out, and then we'll come up. Well, no, we're going to wait one more turn. We don't need to move out right now. If we move out, these guys can come jump on them. So we'll just slide on the 1.5 inches and get a little bit closer to here. We're out of range. I think I'll have to double check. These guys have muskets. So that means they have a 9-inch range. They're not going to be able to start firing at these guys. These guys would be in cover because of the trees in the way. But hey, just start plinking away at them, right? If you can knock off 1 or 2 figures, maybe you can win the game that way. The British now have to commit to doing something with these guys. Or do they? They can bring their commander over here. And we know what the French cavalry will do. They're going to ride over to the ford, led by their leader. And there'll be a little bit of a bunch up. We'll say the ford is broad enough for 2 figures to cross per turn. And now we really do need to figure out, what are we going to do with these guys? What are the British line infantry? They're a big block of troops. We got to commit. We gotta try to do something. All right, we are going to basically swap positions. We're going to bring our leader here, move him at the double that way, and then we will dig in again. Moving at the double, he's only going to get the extra 1/2 inch of movement, so that's going to put him right here, and his boys are going to pile in around him. Something like so. If you have a bugler, you can re-roll that die. Unfortunately, I just went ahead and moved them. And we're done with turn number 4. We are now on to turn number 5. The idea here is that the British are going to go ahead and try to claim this couple of victory points, wipe those guys out, claim a couple of more victory points there. That's 5 of them altogether. If you can end the turn with 5 to the French 3, then you can win the game that way. Next up is going to be initiative. And in this case, once again, the British will win initiative. So these guys, they're not going to move. They're going to open fire. And remember, as I said, it's the distances you're checking are leader to leader. So where did our leader wind up? He's He's somewhere in this. Well, here's our master leader, and then 9 inches to. Well, are we going to take this shot? We're still a little too far away, so we're going to have to take one from the light infantry. If that's the case, then we will go ahead and we will move our leader. Where are you, buddy? I just had you. Here you go. I have our leader in a green cloak, and he's just going to move. Well, no, we might as well move on the double. We can afford it. So he can move a total of 5 inches now. They're going to be able to run up to here, and they will be dug in, so they do have that little defensive bonus. But the light infantry are going to get to return fire now. There are 5 of them. They are firing at what's actually at long range. Leader to leader is beyond. Where's our green cloak leader? There he is. See, here's 6 inches. He's just beyond. He's about 5.5 inches. So the accuracy of the musket is 5. They're going to roll 5 dice. -1, but they're aiming, so it's +1, so they are just going to be hitting on 5s. And they get a wow. They hit the quad the pentafecta. It's not the trifecta. What is it? What do you call it with 5? The pentafecta. So all 5 are hits. Because that was their opening volley, they could have re-rolled any misses, but they didn't need it. Light infantry, crack shots. What do you think? So we're going to roll against these guys' resilience of 4. We are going to roll, and for every 4 or better, 4 of them all together. Wow, that's a really good shot. So we're going to pull off 4 of these rifles. Go down. And that is 20% of the unit size. Had the French done 1 more casualty, that would have forced a command check. 25%. That's your marker. Now it is the British turn to go, and we're going to bring our horse unit right up to the bridge. And the French will respond by bringing their horse unit to right about here. Let's put it right there. We're going to have a cavalry fight for the bridge on the next turn, it looks like. Which, because it's turn 6, may be the last turn of the game. So we'll just kind of leave them like that. That looks good. Now let's go look at what the rest of the French infantry are up to. With the sole British unit distracted by these light infantry, the line infantry is going to break ranks. They're going to move at the double. If these guys are too far away to be shot at from the wall, then that means if the British are too far away to be shot at from the wall, then the French are too far away to be shot by the British. So the French say, hey, you know what? We might as well go ahead and take advantage of that and work our way around outside. We're moving at the double. With a result of 3, they're going to be able to move a total of 4.5 inches, which goes back down to 3.5 inches because they got to spend 1 to get over the wall. And they're going to run over to, well, our leader here will be able to run over to here. They are no longer in line formation. They are once again in skirmish formation. But on the next turn, he will be able to run around to this side. As long as he is within 1.5 inches of this cannon, they're going to be able to score the 8 victory points. That puts the British in a real bind. We are now on turn number 6. Although, now we could probably bring this guy 3 inches over to there, so he's got a little bit of command for both of those guys. Before we move into the 6th turn, we need to understand that this is the liability of having a couple of really large units. You just don't have much initiative. You are stuck with the fact, particularly in a game where you're alternating activations, you are stuck letting the other guy run around for half the turn because you're done and he's still got 2 or 3 units that get to react to whatever you've done, and now you're always kind of on the 8 ball. You know, swapping places here, not great, but I still think it's the best decision. But the difficulty now is we got to figure out who wins the initiative. And if the British win the initiative, what they would really like to do is wait these guys out. Yeah, come try to seize this objective so I can, take some shots at you. They're not going to be able to do that, though, because the French have so many other units that can just go, nah, I'm good, I hold, you go. On the other hand, the French do still want to win the initiative because they want to take another shot with these guys. They want to try to whittle down the number of this line as much as possible. Not going to happen. So now the British do have that conundrum. Should we go ahead and start out by forcing the cavalry fight down here in the south? I don't think so. I think we're just kind of holding these guys off. I think we need to do what we can to wipe these guys out. If we can score a couple of victory points here, and if we have another turn or 2, we may be able to knock these guys out. Yeah, you guys just go ahead and have some fun, duke things out, right? Like cavalry, kind of away from the center of the fight. get annoying each other until somebody wins, and then the remnants can come in and have the effect. Hey, that feels kind of like a Napoleonic game, doesn't it? Be that as it may, let's go ahead and resolve this. So we're going to go ahead and I don't think these guys are dug in, though, are they? We moved it to double, and then we dug in, which I think means they get a +1 to their resiliency. I know what it is. No, they did. They moved, and then they dug in. So, yeah, I kind of screwed that one up a little bit. We're going to go ahead and we're going to blast away at these guys. These guys are not dug in. The British are shooting at the light infantry in those woods, and now we have a total of 16 guys that are just going to unload. But it gets even worse for this unit over here because this is an opening volley. The British line infantry will re-roll all of their misses. They also, because they're already in position, because they're already dug in, they're going to spend a point to aim, and they're going to spend a point to fire 3 shots a minute. I don't see anything in the rules that precludes that, meaning that because they have, for every 5 full models, they get to add D3 shots. And so we are going to roll 3 dice, and we're going to get 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 extra shots in addition to the 16 shots that we already had. So 23 dice altogether. Muskets have an accuracy of 5, so we're hitting on 4s because of the +1 for aiming, and they're going to go everywhere. I know. I probably should have got my dice rolling tray out for this one. And that's a really solid roll here. I'm beginning to wonder if these dice are juiced, as they used to say. So out of those, then there's one more miss. So we missed on a total. It's easier to count the misses, oddly enough. So we missed on 8 of the 23. My math holds. That's 16 hits. The resiliency of those light infantry are the French light infantry. Are these guys tough or not? Resiliency of 3 goes up to 4 because they are in the woods, and that means we have to pass 17 for every 4, 5, if we roll 5, 1, 2s, and 3s, then that will be it for that unit. And it is. So that unit goes bye-bye. And that's going to score 2 points for the British, 2 victory points. And now they're sitting on 5 points, but they're in big trouble. Because this infantry unit is going to be able to move unopposed. This cavalry unit will hold its action, forcing the British to charge, and then we're going to see a countercharge. And I'll be honest with you, part of the reason I'm doing that is so that the British get over the line and we can do our fight here in the open space and not just wind up with 1 or 2 cavalry guys fighting on the bridge. I want to see what a proper cavalry fight looks like. If that's subpar strategy and tactics, it's super par YouTube wargame video production. Oh, you know what I forgot? I forgot these British infantry were firing at long range. That would have been a -1. Any 4s in that 2-hit roll should have been misses and not have required a check. You know, I'm not going to worry about it. We'll just let it slide. Oops. You pointed out in the comments. I already moved this unit up because whatever happens down here isn't going to affect that unit, and we're going to move that leader up there as well. Although, remember, he starts off the fight up here. So now we got to do this cavalry unit. And remember that the British are charging. So let's resolve this charge. The British dragoons are going to charge the French lancers. The French held, so they can declare countercharge. They don't have to. They can say, look, I don't think you can reach me. I'm going to see if you get blown before you reach me and fail that charge. The French are not about that. They are about elan. They're about audacity, audacity, always audacity. So they are going to countercharge, and now both sides are going to roll a d6, and we'll see if they can reach each other. The British and French both have buglers, so they can re-roll this if they want to, but they don't really want to because this now becomes a total movement of 7 inches. This becomes a movement of 8.5, and essentially they're going to meet right in the middle. So there's 4 inches to there, there's 4 inches to there. So they're going to kind of pile in right about there. And in the game itself, playing the game by the rules, they're pretty loosey-goosey. They meet like this, and then you have a little pile-in move. And just like I said, it's going to be, we'll try to squeeze as many guys in there as we can. for this particular combat. And it looks like we're going to be able to squeeze about 5 on 5. We'll put a second rank of the French in there, and we will take our casualties off the rear of these formations. Everybody in this fight has a pistol and a saber, meaning they get 2 attacks. We've got 5 figures that are in contact, so it's going to be 10 attacks. Order of operations matters. The charging unit gets to attack first. Well, let me back up. The cavalry unit strikes first, resolve its effects, and then the infantry can counterattack. In this case, we have 2 cavalry units, so that doesn't help us out. Well, the charging unit strikes first. Oh, but they both charge, so that doesn't help us out. Then it's the more melee value. So if we had heavy cavalry with a melee of 4, they would strike first regardless of whether they charged or not. Both of these units have a melee score of 3. That still doesn't help us out, so it's whoever has the initiative, which is the British. So the British are going to roll their 10 hits first. And they are hitting on 4s. They're only going to get 2 hits. The resilience for those French is, I think it's 4? Is it 4? Yeah, 4 for the French, and it is 4 for the British as well. So we're looking for 4s or better. So they only lose 1 guy. The French only lose 1 guy. And then the French decide to counterattack. And as you can see, they are still 5 on 5. So we'll roll 10 dice for the French. And again, we're looking for 4s. And they get a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hits. Going up against a resiliency of 4 again. And this is pretty common war game stuff. So we've got a total of 3 saves. That means 4 of our British Dragoons are wiped out from the map. Now, they do need to make a command check, but we also have to do, before we get to that, oh, not for firing. For melee, it's exactly what you'd expect. If we had banners, you would treat that as, hey, I dealt an extra wound. We don't have any banners in this case. The French have done more wounds than the British, so the French have won this particular exchange. This British unit has to make a command check. They have a command of, what do we got here? Light Dragoons of 3. So we need a 4 or better. A 6 is an automatic success. They have failed. They are going to ride away a total of 3d6 inches. Again, divide by 2. So that's going to be a total of 2, 4, 5, 6, 7 inches. Then pursuit happens. Before we move those figures, we roll the pursuit dice. And if we roll more than 7 inches, so, well, let's just look at it this way. This is an 11. And the pursuers roll a total of 10. So the pursuers don't catch them. Cutting that, they missed it by just a half an inch. Alternatively, you could go 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's do it that way. It's a little bit easier. So our 7 inches takes our British to here, and our French will pursue to, I just call it right about there. That's fine. And after their flight, it'll look a little something like this. I've given them the red gem of Broken Hood. The British, I should say, have the red gem of Broken Hood, and there's just that little gap. And now the reason I worked my way through all of that, even though this might be the last turn of the game, is that, and we're not done with it, by the way. We still need to do our recovery phase. And we do a rally phase. These guys get another chance to redeem themselves. They're still looking for a 7 or better. With another 1, they have failed to recover from Broken Hood. What does that mean? If it's failed, the unit must flee. So, once again, they're going to flee a total of 3d6 inches away, and to be honest with you, because we rolled another 11, they're going to move 5.5 inches away. It says they must flee away from enemy units and towards their deployment zone. I think, given the fact that they are only about 10 inches away from the far corner, I think we're done with these guys. But if we move them, if we do move them that 5.5 inches, it's going to put them right about here, yeah? And let's just leave them on the table. They have a little bit more space to go, trying to gain some separation from these guys, and that's going to be the end. And it might not matter, but let's leave them on the board because it might. They're broken to start the next turn, and we need to finish off this turn by finding out whether it is the final turn of the game. Let's analyze the situation first. The Enemy unit wiped out and or flees off the board is 2 points to the British, plus 3 points for this, for a total of 5 points. The French are sitting on 8 victory points. These guys are not half strength yet. So it's 8-5 in favor of the French. And we're going to roll a die, and on a 3 or more, the game continues. And there you have it. With a roll of 1, we only played the 6 turns. The game is over. And you can't fault us for trying. We gave the British every opportunity to fix this, leaving these guys on the table, giving them another turn to recover, although they probably would have been driven off the board at the end of this turn anyway, or which would have been another 2 points to the French and would have made it even worse loss. But I really like the way the flow of this game went. There's some really good jockeying for position, a little bit of guesswork and kind of challenging each other and kind of probing and exploring for those weak points. And then just like everything, all hell breaks loose. And then you're basically just trying to shove troops into whatever gap you can. A lot of interesting puzzles for the wargamer in a game like this. And although it's a little bit old school in its methodologies and the way it plays, I really think if you're in the mood for a nice, slow, sedate, puzzle of a war game, you can't go wrong with Chosen Men. It's nice, kind of maybe 80s style, right? With the unit profiles and the pursuit. The way the pursuit works is so reminiscent of like the old school Warhammer Fantasy. I just love it. Such a great game. Hey, thanks for the recommendation, Iguanosaurus Rex. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun drawing up these army lists and throwing this down on the table. Guys, I'm looking forward to a great 2023 with plenty of historical wargaming, plenty of science fiction, plenty of fantasy. I got so much stuff in the hopper. I'm so excited. I want to get it all filmed and share it with you today, but we can't because we live in time moves forward, and hey, that's great because we get to spend a whole other year together. And I want to thank everybody for coming along for the ride. Until next time, I'm praying for you.